Okay. So for this next session, what we're going to be doing is trying to work through the bright highlights of the interior shot. The exterior shot is coming along well, and we can see the jump. I'll bring up the previous steps for what this looked like. From here, where I've got my shadow pass, I've got my highlight pass, and now I'm going through and working in between the shadows and the highlights and creating brighter contrast. And just it's sort of a first detail pass, but you can see that there's a pretty substantial jump. I'm also making some color shifts and changes and adding some more details, like the flowers in the lower left hand side, and just getting tighter with the painting and bringing it into focus. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing with this interior shot now. So for the interior shot, the steps were up until this point to I had my sketch, then I go in and I do my blocking of the color. After that, working from the very back towards the front, I do a shadow pass. Once I've got my initial shadow pass completed, then I'm going to move forward and I'm going to do my highlight pass. That's where we're at now with this interior. And in the same way that we just saw with the exterior shot, I'm going to work it again, making some of those highlights even brighter. And I'm using my exterior shot as my point of reference for how bright I want to go with a lot of these colors. So good section to start with. I've got my brightest color over here. So I'm just going to grab that into my color palette by hitting I on the keyboard to select the eyedropper. And yeah, I'm going to move over into my shot, go to that layer. That's right here. Oops. This layer. And I can just start working, I think, directly over the top of it. This is also a good spot to maybe get away from that round brush and start using a textured brush. I'm going to go to my MB Line Art Legendary within the brush pack that I shared out with everyone. And now I can go in and get to the business of painting. So I'm working at 100% right now. I don't have my smoothing turned on. Always a good idea to turn on the smoothing, and I'm going to drop my opacity down to 55% so I can build up those highlights and get a little bit more shading in there. And again, I'm working in between my highlights and my shadows to be able to create something where the light is really looking onto the shot. It should look quite a bit stronger. So we know that the light is coming from the top left-hand side of the exterior. So I'm going to go in and make sure that all of this feels really bright up at the top and then have it dissipate a little bit as it comes down further. I could make the lighting a little bit more yellow, but I think that's a stage that I can do right at the very end of this painting. Let that light really get in there. And those highlights are starting to work. All right. It's feeling good for me on that one. I don't think I have any more of that blue anywhere. I want to create a nice heat spot on this door. By heat, I mean where the lighting is really coming in and hitting. So that'll work for me for this first pass. Let's go in and get my super bright purple here. And I'm going to do the same thing, my bright purple. Again, I'm thinking about where the lighting is coming from within the shot. I'm going to turn this up a little bit higher at the beginning to like 93%. Let's really start getting those highlights in there. This will also help me build up that wood grain. So I'm doing sort of 3 colors on the wood. One good idea, this is something that I learned when I was doing ZBrush, is wherever you've got a dark fold, usually there is going to be a ridge just on the other side of it. So whenever you find one of these dark lines, if you add a little bit of a highlight just to the other side of it, it usually turns out looking pretty good. It's 99% of the time that move is not going to hurt anything that you're doing. So we're leaving this nice and bright up at the top because this is really in the light. We're not going to see. Also going to be highlighting that door as well, the door handle that's made out of brass or gold or something, that gold kind of color. All right, just checking to make sure I'm not muted right now while I'm talking about all this stuff. And we can see how that door is really starting to come together and look nice and bright. So a little bit less line down at the bottom. Still getting some highlights here, but a little bit less. And now, as this door is starting to come over to the where it's half closed, the light isn't going to be able to reach quite as far, so I don't need to do as many highlights. There's still going to be some on it where the light's pulling through, but not as much. And we're getting that real good sense of lighting. Again, with each one of these, always starting with the back of my scene and then working my way towards the front. It's going to be the best way to navigate these spaces. Good. Let's go back over. You can see just how much I'm working between my exterior shot and pulling those colors in on the interior shot so that we're building them at the same time. This also allows me this extra pass to be able to refine some of those shapes a little bit better. I think I'm working below the gold. There it is. Now it's nice and bright. There we go. That's looking good for me. Now that is awfully dark on the back side of this handle right now. Now this could be a good area for me to go in. Like my shadow passes. There it is. 61%, a little bit lower. Here it goes. So now that highlight is still there, but it's not as deep as it was. Creating a little area of contrast between the shadows so that we're showing off the form just a little bit better there. It's looking good to me. And what else is going on within this door? So right now we've got this really dark layer for those lines. Maybe I can take those lines and brighten them up a little bit so that we're creating more of a gradient as we're moving down. And let's go back to my highlight layer, see what else I can do. So that's a pretty nice little color there. Yeah, there we go. So those shadows aren't quite as dark up at the top, and that'll make that part look quite a bit better. So with that one on and off, we can see how much the door is starting to brighten up. There's still more stuff that we can do with it later on, but we're in a good spot to keep pushing forward in on this scene. So the next thing I've got is the wood on the back wall around the door. And you can see that I've got a really bright color here for how I've highlighted the wood within the shot. All around here, it's the same color. And I'm going to start adding that to this wall. There's my highlight on the wood for now. Let's go on a new layer over top of it and bring that back up to like 100%. My oops, my battery's starting to die on my pen a little bit. So this is that pure sunlight starting to reach into the room, reach into the door. Give it a little bit of a highlight on the back side of the door. There we go. And we know the light's coming down, so we want this part. And each one of these is allowing me to be able to refine my shapes a lot more. So it's 3 passes to get into the final form or shape of what this wood is going to take. Feels good to me. There we go. And this little section down here, definitely want that highlighted. So I'm feeling strong. Maybe a little bit of a highlight. Still can't see it. Hmm. Ah, so we want the lighting to be on the left-hand side more strongly as it's entering into my shot. Feeling pretty good about the way that it's dissipating up into the ceiling for now. That feels fine to me, but all these objects up at the top of the ceiling need quite a bit more work. So there's my shadow pass, shadow, and I think I don't want to make the highlights any stronger than that. There we go. We're just going to work over top of all these. So we've got this deep shade. I don't think those highlights need to be stronger than that. I'm at 100. Let's take it down to 43%. Just connect some of this stuff into the shadows a little bit better. There we go. So again, I'm thinking this entire time about where the lighting's coming from. So letting some of this stuff go. Let me use the smudge tool here in just a moment. Pull that down and over. So we're hiding those up in the rafters a little bit more. Same thing goes with this stuff. All right, so that shadow layer right now is really, really sharp on the pillows, and this is a soft, round form. So I'm going to take my smudge tool on the shadow pass there and make it a lot softer, so that it doesn't look like it's made of glass or made of, like, it's been starched to within an inch of its life. A little bit more ambient shading and occlusion. Probably do a little bit more right here. There you go. Cool. Quick little smudge tool on this. Darken up just a little bit more. Let's find our shadow pass for those layers. Okay, cool. And just letting that stuff dissipate, drop back into the upper rafters and the shadows. Just a little bit more is looking good to me. A little bit bright there. Work. Using the burn tool just to be able to darken up some of these spaces so it's not quite as bright. Yeah. Right. Okay, it's looking a little better. Lights on those guys. That's looking good. So they're starting to show up. Okay, the next thing I want to resolve, I think, is the left-hand side where the dragon's at, and the shelves over here. These pins have been must be driving me crazy this entire time. Let's soften up the edge shadows and values there. I think the bowling pins need some type of lines or something around them just to give more of an indication of the form of some of those spaces. We'll go back to the dragon here in a sec. I think it's important to get this highlight coming from the door finished. Also got a nice orange in there too, but for now we're just going to stick this. Find the sound effects in the background. Thanks. Okay, cool. So now we've got a nice bright highlight that we're starting to draw on this door. Again, we want to dissipate because the light's not quite reaching back into this back corner, but I still want to be able to really show off that there's a an edge there. It's looking and feeling good to me. I'm on a new layer here, so I'm working non-destructively, so I can make some other choices here in a second. These panels. But yeah, this is a really bright spot within the scene. Same with this. So that should give me a pretty good change. I haven't forgotten that I've got a window within this caravan that I want to light up as well. Okay, let's look at this now. Yeah, so that's becoming quite a bit more bright. It's working for me. Use my dodge tool on that base wood color. It's starting to look pretty good to me. Let's see. Oh, okay. Feeling good. I'm trying to get another color into this highlight because I feel like it's gone too bright and I'm not drawing enough attention to it the way that I want it to and losing a lot of the detail there. So this is sort of a light layer. I'm going to mess with my layer interpolation. There we go. Yeah, so that's brighter and just giving it a little bit more hue, a little bit more interest right there. I think that's working well. Let's get off of this. Good. go in and get those bowling pins working correctly now. I said I wanted to do another color on the bowling pins. What color haven't I really used too much? We got some green. That's sort of just down on the floor. We haven't used too much of that. And we got the green over there. Got the red, which is moving through the entire piece. We haven't really used any of that purple outside of on the door. Yeah, this purple is the color we want. I'm erasing it. I know I could do better than that. Let's make it more round. There you go. Better. Okay. So the bowling pins, we'll have give some lacquer to them and make them a little bit more colored. There we go. I think I can do a better job with these. Once I get to them, they start to fall apart pretty fast right now. So we're going to do some more tricks to these bowling pins to make a complex stack or group of objects that's got roundness and other stuff going on with it to look just better. So let's go in and let's get some of that deep ambient occlusion here as we move further back. This will help to start to define some of the shapes on this as well, where that light can't quite reach to. It's already starting to look a lot better by doing that. Okay. Needs a shadow on the edge of it. It's starting to look stronger. Okay. I'm going to pass it down. Got a lot of light. It's wrapping around this shape. So I'm going to soften up some of those shadows that I created previously. There we go. It's not quite as shaded. This guy as well. There. Yeah, so this is this is totally the detail painting now. Trying to get this stuff to all play nice together. Okay. Okay, big improvement there. Still feel like there's an overall lighting pass that needs to happen within the section to really make it make sense. All right. So what I'm doing is I did create a light layer within here, 2%. I'm gonna do the same thing in this scene now. Okay, so we can see within the thumbnail that we're on the right track here. Let's go to screen, 40%. Yeah, that's giving me the highlight that I was looking for there. It's working a lot better now. If we turn it off, we can see we still got our colors and our light in there, but we got a nice little stream of light that's starting to come into the shot. I think that's just going to help me paint this dragon now. I feel a lot more prepared to go in and start tackling him. Let's do his cage first. So I usually don't like to do this until the very end because this really impacts the visual decision making that I'm doing within the shot. But I was kind of running into I want to try and get as much of it painted without doing that as I can. So then I start making all my decisions based on those choices. It doesn't always pan out as well as I'd like for it to. But in this case, it was just I was getting lost and I wasn't quite getting to where I wanted to. So it's sort of a shortcut, sort of a cheat code. But so don't rely on it all the time. Don't forget that actually painting this stuff is always going to be the best path forward. There we go. So now we got a little bit more of the light going on with the cage. I think that looks nice. Got some dark shadows from up here. I do have another light source entering into the scene, so I don't want to go completely dark. Let's use the smudge tool. Looks good. And now for our dragon. So this dragon fellow, we got a shading pass on him, but he's got scales. They're probably going to have like some subdermal scattering going on there and some other hues that are showing up. I haven't really used this bright red in my shot at all. So here's my shadow, my highlight pass on the dragon. So I can use my dodge tool on this later on to be able to brine these up, but I just want to give it some more form and scale. Color shift in these. There we go. And again, this is about working between the shadow pass and the highlights. Using my dodge tool. Yeah, right now the dragon's looking pretty the scales aren't really showing up the way that I want them to. Go in and do this. Try to avoid doing stippling as much as I possibly can on any painting that I'm working on. Here, I think it might be a little necessary. There we go. Nice bright highlight on the wing. Now we got some work to do within the shadows. So it's looking good. And the wings and the shadows on the wings themselves need some work. So I'm going to grab that layer. And we want to create, just like we did on the outside of the, what do we call it? On the outside of the trailer. Dark. And then we want this wing here be a little transparent, like the light's coming in and going through it. Better. Still not detailing this dragon out. Getting too caught up in the details, working loose on it. Let's see if we're heading in the right direction here. Turn that off. That's all looking quite a bit better. So without that, Yeah, that's helping the highlights quite a bit. Let's try and mess with the layer interpretation. Ooh, I like the neon pink in there. It's pretty cool. Turn it down just a little bit so it's not quite so bright, but it's feeling pretty good to me on the dragon and the way that dragon's tail is interacting with the light. I'm happy with it. And now, the lighting is really starting to come together. Let's go in, let's do a shadow pass and start working around the right-hand side, especially within these potato sacks. There they go. All right. Okay, cool. So that's starting to feel good to me down there. A little bit of a highlight. Feels accurate. I like it. Feels resolved. So now we got the chest on the right-hand side. So they still need to have highlights, but a lot of this is going to be pulling that lighting down quite a bit further. So let's start with the cam. There we go. So now the target isn't showing up nearly as much. That's what it looked like before. Dropping it back into that shadow space. It's working a lot better. Shadows be a little deeper. To the door can be darker as well. Cool. And let's get on the here you go, doing the highlights on the gold brassy bits. Starting getting a little bit further away. from the door because there's still a lot of light coming in from that door. Okay. Looks good to me. And let's go over the highlight layer and burn it closer to the door where the light's not quite hitting. And let's make it a little bit brighter over to the edge where the light is actually showing up. There we go. Cool. So now that chest is starting to drop back a little bit. That looks nice. I like the purple that's on the wall there. It's losing some of its detail and just sort of fading back. So that's not quite strong right there. It doesn't need to be. That feels good. Now we've got the purple chest that's been driving me crazy this entire time. Let it go. Some of those details drop away here. And then we've got next thing. It's all feeling pretty good to me. I think we can do a little bit more. The brown that's on here. Darker towards the base. So the ropes are looking good, but we want to consider the ropes. And how the light is working all the way through them. There you go. And I add some highlights on those. I won't forget about that. So that deep color that we're introducing. Go. Yes, now the ropes look more considered with the rendering. That'll work for me. Um, cool. That's looking good. And now we've got the cast iron stove over here, which I don't really want to do too much to the cast iron stove because it's metal, but it's not like super reflective. So it's just going to get a little bit of the light within the shot. This is just a real quick general light map for how the light might move into this scene. Here I've got light that's coming in from the top right-hand side that I'm going to start working my way into now. And let's smudge this. Okay. Doesn't look good right now, so we're going to mess with the layer interpretation. Turn it on and off. So now it's barely there, but still giving us just a little bit of light within the space. Looks good to me. And now we've got that secondary light that's supposed to come into the shot. So that's the light that's coming in from this window. I kind of like the blue, like maybe it's got a little bit of a tint that's happening with it. So I'm going to pretend to just sort of paint imagining where these light sources might come from. Up over here, smudge it. Trying to save my scene. Yes, smudge tool always can lag your computer, so give a save after you do something like that. Let's go into filter, blur, and then box blur. That'll preserve my edges. Make it a little bit bigger. There we go. Let's try doing an overlay. And for now, let's leave this really light right there. I think that looks good. Edit, transform, and skew it. Transform and distort. Okay. Okay, I think that's working a little bit better to establish that there's a light source coming from the left-hand side. Um, not too crazy about how it's messing with my flour sacks that I worked so hard to get the shading right on those guys. Okay. There you go. Okay, so there it is. I think we got our two light sources established pretty well. And now I'm in a good position to be able to go in and paint out the highlights on the sign and then this wood overhang in the foreground. Should be pretty close to where I want to be with this painting. But let's save that for another one. I can feel myself getting a little rushed here. So I'm going to pause it for now. All right, let's get it going again. So looking at this interior shot for the round two on this one, first off, just to bring it back to where we started, the first step was going through and doing the shapes, and I'm doing each one of these shapes on its own layer. Um, and I'm starting from the back and then working my way to the front. Of course, I've got my sketch that's kind of x-rayed over the top here like this, and then blocking in my color space. After that, I'm doing a shadow pass, and I'm doing the shadows. Each shadow gets a layer just above the object. So for example, the two trunks over here on the right-hand side, each one of them is a different layer, and then on top of this kind of shale green color, then I'm doing another layer with the purple. And then from there, I'm going in and I'm doing a highlight pass. This is an initial highlight pass to get an idea of where my lighting is coming from. And now, just like I did with the exterior, where I moved from that initial highlighting pass, I'm working in between the highlights and the shadows and just doing sort of an initial first polished pass, but pushing those highlights further. And that gets me from here, right? Because it has a highlight and it has a shadow into something that looks like this. And this is a much more completed and finished looking painting. You can see that I'm making some choices all along within my shadows and painting inside of my shadows and over the shadows to be able to start moving towards a good final finished piece. And that's where I'm at with this. So that's how I got to this stage within this painting. And now I've got this light source from the little window on the right, on the outside of the cart that's coming in, and I want to establish some highlights on this brown baseboard as well as around my wood pieces up here for how the light would be working. So I've got a nice bright color that I used previously. Let's see if I can't go in and make it a little bit brighter and a little bit more saturated as we're moving closer to the front of my shot. And I've got all my wood pieces here. So here's all that. Here's their highlights, or here's their shadows, another shadow pass on those. I'm going to be working on top of them. So no need to really go in there and turn my smoothing on to 25%. No need to select the layers, what I'm trying to say. And I'm just going to start painting, and I might end up removing some of this stuff a little bit. We're at 100. Okay, so we're going to have, oops, really going to be lit up a lot now. Painting a little messy, but that's okay. Got another section of this wood. So one thing that's going to happen with this shadow, the shadow is really deep and purple through here. And you can see as I'm getting closer to the light source, that dark purple isn't as dark. I want to keep that lighter purple moving further back within this. So I'm going to go over my purple layer. Working pretty well. Still got my highlight color. I really want to think about how the highlight is working on this. sort of wood carving section. There we go. Getting those highlights painted in there, thinking about the directional light each time. A little messy, a little hairy. There we go. That feels good to me. I've got some ultra highlights right here that I want to continue to include where that lacquered wood is really catching the edge of the light. Strong. See it really start to hit. I want to go inside of that dark purple like we did a moment ago. This color. It's looking better. Okay. So now as I start to zoom out, I should be able to turn this layer on and off, and we can see what a difference that makes for this whole part, catching some of those highlights. It's looking good to me. Softening up out of those shadows. Down just a little bit. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to use my burn tool now, just a little bit. I try not to overuse the burn tool. All right, there we go. Creating a harsh highlight there on the side. That looks good to me. And next up, we've got our signage down here on the ground. I'm going to push those highlights on that sign further up. So whatever the color is, sort of a red, let's move it up into sort of a booger yellow color. I'm really thinking about the wood grain on this sign with the way that I'm painting this. I always mess with the layer and interpolation, how the layer is interpreted, to be able to make this highlight work with the colors that I have established a little bit better. But for now, I think we're going to be in a pretty good spot. It's just sort of painting in a spotlight. It's part of the painting. I want it to, just like a spotlight does, it's round, but it's got soft edges around the edge of it. So we're going to make these lines a little bit smoother and have the lighting sort of disappear around that edge that's getting caught. That looks pretty good to me. Might do a little bit more, but for the most part, yeah, we've got the lighting that's coming in there. Probably some other stuff that we can do, but for right now, I think we're in a pretty good spot. Let's turn this down to 26%. All right, where's the highlight? That's the highlight. Let's soften some of that up here. And for that bright layer that I was just painting, 83. Zoom out so I can see the whole thing. What the heck I'm doing with this. It's okay. Because that feels more accurate. And the sign itself, I'm going to use my dodge tool now. Still not crazy about it. There you go. It's at least a little bit more interesting. So other stuff that I'm seeing on this, I've got my two shadow layers. Let's just see. I feel like there's still there you go. So that's just sort of hiding that section. So what I'm trying to do is create a little bit more contrast between the left and the right-hand side. That's just a little bit darker. Starts to sell the idea of where the highlight's actually hitting within this room a little bit better. I think that feels stronger for the light coming into the space. It's working for me. Got that secondary piece of light that's coming in there. Yeah, I'm good with it. Hmm. So I've been looking at this painting for quite some time now. I think it's a good spot for this evening to leave it alone and let it sort of sit, and to jump back over to the exterior shot and start working through the details on the exterior shot, so that we kind of bring it to this same level. And maybe there's some things that I discovered here, like adding a little bit more of the reddish tone over the wood. That's helping. And some of the deeper shadows that I'm seeing on the interior, and see where I can bring those into the exterior. But yeah, I'm gonna do another pass on the exterior. That'll probably be the final detail pass on that, and then one more detail pass on this interior, just to be able to tighten up or change anything that I want to on it. And we're gonna call that one done. So I'm going to stop painting for now, and then I'll probably do a speed painting or a sped up um, painting on those final details for this exterior shot for you guys to check out if you'd like. But yeah, I'm happy with the way the interior came together from that original sketch idea. See where the original sketch was. Yeah, there we go. From the original sketch right here over into the final painting, I'd say that the paint has made this picture look a lot better. And yeah, it's getting to where it needs to be. And that's sort of what I was envisioning in my head with that first sketch. So stop it for now, and looking forward to showing you guys more steps soon.